Leon found himself retracing his steps, back down from the roof and back to the main hall, where he hurried down a fire ladder. He had to tell Brannon about the Stevens and the helicopter. He found Officer Brannon standing behind the main desk, facing the wall and storage bin. Leon jogged over to him. Brannon, something's happened. It's Stevens." The officer turned his face in one quick jolt. Leon stumbled back in shock. Brannon's mouth hung gape open in a permanent way. His teeth were moving for the kill. Leon scrambled away on all fours as fast as he could. Brannon stumbled forward slowly. Leon couldn't believe what he was seeing. Marvin Brannon had just become of the dead. Leon stood back up straight and pulled his handgun from his holster and took aim. "I'm sorry, Lieutenant." Leon squeezed the trigger, and the chamber slid back into one deafening motion. The bang echoed in the main hall. Officer Brannon sagged to the floor after laying out one last muffled groan. Leon dropped the mag in his VP-70 handgun and checked the magazine. He had 15 rounds remaining. He had 3 more to top himself. As he slid it back into his pistol, he chambered to the next round. Leon stood motionless, almost numb, trying to figure out what to do next. He realized that he was likely the only person left in the building. Claire hit the ground running the streets almost an hour ago. Maybe she made it? Then why he had not seen her yet? Stevens was confirmed dead. Marvin turned to his now deceased Thompson, and he was missing in action, likely dead. Leon had decided that he had no choice but to push forward, for he could always be what's all left. In the academy, his supervisors taught him POL, priority of life. As an officer, you are to put your life on the line every day while on duty. The general public always came first, innocents, then criminals. Despite popular belief, cops placed the lives of the offenders first until their own lives were threatened. When the imminent danger and innocence had been secured, your life became priority. Officer Brannon encouraged saving as many lives as he could, and clearly done all he could. Leon's new priority was to find the parking garage and look for the armory that way. But where to go first? Leon remembered suddenly. If anyone had a map that showed it was a reception, this place was a natural maze, and without one he would be left lost. Leon turned towards the reception area where the liquor lay dead. His tongue sprawled out over the furniture. Leon trained his weapon on the dead creature and turned its head to the reception desk, watching where he placed his hands. There was no point in becoming a snack for this early game. His hand fell across plastic display stand. Leon pulled a small folded sheet labeled Raccoon Police Station Map and Directory. F Floor 1, Floor 2, and Floor 3, basement, car park, sewer entrance. Jesus. This place was bigger than he thought. He may as well have been trapped in the Great Pyramids of Egypt. This floor wasn't an option. According to the map where there was the only way he hadn't gone, Leon's eyes fell on the door before him. He had splintered, damaged floor, as he was pretty sure the liquor came from. He traced the map and found out that the far end of the station was an underground stairway that could take him past the break room and past the morgue, the armory, range, and the car park. From there on, he would have to find a working car and be back on the road and out of town. Easy enough. He stepped towards the wrecked door and slipped onto the map into his vest. Leon drew his weapon and kept it pointed on the ground in front of him as it moved. The hallways were fairly clear as Leon entered, and he saw movement. Something small about half his size, running around the corner. What the hell? Leon pointed his gun and raced down the corner. He turned the corner with his weapon out in front. 3 zombies littered the hallway. Leon looked up to see a pair of legs squeezing into a vent just beyond the dead. Is that a little girl? Is she infected? She couldn't be. Her movements are too smart. Leon didn't hesitate. If there was a child roaming the police station, he had to find them. He trained his weapon on the closest zombie by the broken window and his inmate and leapt and fired. The first shot went striking low behind the beast's gut, causing its stomach to open up and droop blood and snoo. The second struck its neck, and causing it to moan, become more gurgling noise to abrupt from the dysfunctional vocal cords. Leon retrained his aim and took a deep breath and fired once more. The round struck the zombie in the temple, and it sagged backwards against the wall. Leon focused on the second one further down the hall from the pair of two double doors. He stopped forward firing once more, twice killing the second. The last one at the end of the hall scraped against the walls with its fingernails, splitting backwards. It was trying to reach the air ducts where the girl had climbed into. Leon closed the distance between them, and it turned to its head for all of his sudden movements. Leon fired again. This one took by a good shot. Blood spurled upwards in the arc, as it fell backwards to the cold, hard wood floor. Leon's eyes fell into the ventilation shaft as the girl crawled into. Leon lifted the shaft and flicked his flashlight on to see two blue eyes and golden hair. The girl was holding her legs close to her chest and appeared to be wearing a private school uniform. Leon didn't think she could be much older than 12. There was a silence between them as the two, as he looked up with them with a questionable gaze. "Hey, my name's Leon. I'm a police officer. What's your name?" She didn't move. "Sherry Birkin. Are they gone?" Leon peered back and looked at the bodies piled behind him. They all remained still in blood and pooled around them. "They're gone." "You mean you killed them?" Her eyes and gaze were unfaltering. Clearly she hadn't seen a lot and was afraid to call those things what they were. Leon chose his words carefully. "When I saw you running, I did. It's my job to protect people." Sherry seemed to have loosened up a bit. "Is there anyone else with you?" "Where are your mom and dad?" They're dead," Sherry managed. Leon looked back at the hallway behind him once more. He didn't really like having his back towards a dark hallway. "I see, Sherry. Listen, it's not safe. We do need to get out of the station. Do you know where the parking garage is?" "I do, but it's not safe." Leon's thoughts flashed to all the encounters so far. The zombies were slowly avoidable for sure. But that thing from them was in the reception, the one that got Officer Brannon. The zombies were the only beginning. Who knows what else was creeping around the station? "I won't lie to you, Sherry, but I know it's not safe, but hiding in the dark only delays the inevitable. We have to try to escape. You were lucky with these monsters, but eventually luck runs out." He hated to have to be so blunt with someone so young, but he had no choice. He wasn't leaving without her. "It's not just the zombies," she mumbled. Leon nodded. "There's something else out there." Something let out a grumbling howl from the reception. Leon turned his head as something was coming. "Sherry, we need to go," he whispered. After about a split second, thinking she reached for his hand, and he pulled her out. They raced back to the briefing room and let the door fall closed behind them. Whatever was shown in the hall heard their footsteps and picked up the pace, stomping along, its shadow growing as Leon let the door fall behind them. There were a pair of lockers in the room, and some were in desks. He opened one and pushed Sherry inside and jumped into the next one beside her. A second one later, the briefing room door slammed open again behind them, and something large stepped in. Leon peered through the suit slits in the lock to see the hulking figure stepping into the room. It was a humanoid that stood on its two legs. It appeared to have the remains of clothing dangling from its shoulders around its waist. The head sat off into one side, and a meaty red flesh informed to the next, where an eye had formed. "What the hell is that?" Leon clutched the butt of his pistol and watched it carefully. One arm was still intact, while the other turned into a razor-sharp fin. The head still had brown-colored hair sitting on top of its head. It was clearly losing hair over time. It still wore pants despite the mutation, but they were tattered down and worn. If the shoes on, they were not long gone, and it walked on human feet. The coat dangling over its shoulders was that of a doctor with an ID badge, although Leon couldn't read it in the darkness. The beast stopped in its place, scanning the room with its eyes, and turned away from the lockers. The monster breathed heavily, as if it was listening. The monster trudged away towards the far door, and threw its weight onto the door, causing it to hang by its hinges. Leon drew a deep breath, and let his hand fall from his weapon. "Daddy?" Leon's eyes went wide. "Daddy?" Jack and Claire fled into the reception office with their weapons drawn. As Claire entered the office, Jack looked back to check the balcony for anything following them. Mr. X was leaving an ominous scar in his memory. Jack bumped into Claire, her red vest brushing against the shoulder. "What?" Claire's hazel eyes were wide as her eyes took a look at some gruesome sight before them. A large inside-out monster was sprawled across the floor, its tongue hanging from its mouth, twisted in between the chairs. "What the hell is that?" Jack said. Claire's eyes gazed along the walls. "Bullet holes. Good, we're not alone. We should follow their lead." Claire held the muzzle of her handgun pointed down at the dead beast as Jack peered through the next nearby window in reception. "Looking for something?" Claire asked. Jack remembered her face. Mary, the young blonde receptionist from earlier in this day. He wondered to himself if she had made it out. "No," he said, still peering through the glass. Then just something smacked the glass, making Jack fall backwards in panic. Claire held her weapon up. This woman, or at least what was left of her. The name tag on her blouse read Mary. Jack shifted his weight. "Damn it, it looks like no one's made it out." The zombies snarled and crawling and beating the bulletproof glass. "I have a feeling the whole city is like this by now," Claire said. Claire sat watching as Jack barricaded the reception door with wooden benches, potted plants, and furniture. The pair decided to take a breather to create a barrier between them and whatever the hell that thing in the trench coat was. They pulled a massive tongue beast into the main hall and left it lying for the side of the door. Claire wasn't so sure if a barricade would do any matter, but she let him occupy his mind. The likelihood they would need to return to the main hall was slim. After all, once they reached the parking garage, they would be gone. "So, can you shoot?" Claire asked, as Jack struggled to make a move at the other side of the table in front of the door. "Yeah, I did some hunting with my father as a kid." "What can you hunt in the wilderness with a handgun?" Jack stopped in place as he realized what she was hinted at. "If you have a question, why don't you just ask it?" "I've seen the way you shoot. You load a weapon like it's second nature, and your stance is the John Wayne stance. I've seen it a million of times. You have training of some kind." Jack juggled the thoughts in his head. "So, it is possible to learn to shoot like a soldier and not be a soldier. Not saying anything is just as odd. So you hold your weapon like a downward position when moving. Check corners when clearing rooms, and as point as good as you search. I've seen it a million of times. My brother has shown me." "Right. Her brother was a STARS." Jack thought to himself as he turned to face her. "DUI, huh? You lied to me," Claire accused him. "Now wait. Hold up a moment." Jack held up his hands. "Who the hell are you?" She raised her voice. "I told you the truth the first time. I was brought in for DUI. My name is Jack. You go to school, right? You said so earlier. Which one?" Jack thought to himself. "Shit, I don't know the schools around here. Dude, just tell her the truth and stop lying." "Claire, I'm sorry." "I knew it. I told you if you lied." She reached for her weapon. "Wait, Claire, listen." She stopped for her second hand, ready to grab her weapon. "Look, you're right. I'm a military, well, ex-military. I have fired weapons before and was picked up for DUI. "What branch?" she said. Jack thought for a second. "None of them." "Wait, what do you mean?" "Not any regular branch. I worked for a private firm as a special ops agent." "What? Who?" "The Umbrella Corporation. I reassigned over a year ago when I got the hint that they weren't the most reputable company to work for. There was a warrant out for my arrest when I was picked up on suspicious of DUI. I was charged for conspiracy and murder. Claire's eyes squinted at him in anger. Everything I've told you is true. I've had plans on going to school, decided not to, and started working for Umbrella. I rose through the ranks and for the security team quick, and they had me as an agent. Claire shook her head. Where does the murderer and conspiracy come in? Honestly, I don't know. I've never killed anyone. I reported my concerns to my boss regarding the ethics of the genetic research, and I was told to reassign immediately. I took their advice and reassigned the next day. I learned that soon after the police were looking for me. I spent weeks evading the police and ran from town to town, avoiding detecting, using the training I was given by Umbrella. But it was Stars who eventually caught to me and put me in handcuffs. Officer Brandon took me in. The truth is, I knew something was wrong in the city when we arrived, but it never thought it would be this out of hand. You said the Stars arrested you. Did you see my brother? Claire asked. No, I didn't. But I swear, Claire, if I did, I would have told you. Right, just like you were completely honest about all this. She rolled her eyes. These zombies are these creatures. I think I have something to do with a nearby incident that occurred in just a matter of months ago. After I reassigned an attempt to prove that what was happening. When all this happened, someone orchestrated a crime, and now I'm going down for a murder and conspiracy. But why come back? Why not run? Claire, I have to clear my name, otherwise I'm a dead man. I was on a way to meet a contract, an officer named Burton, Jack said. There was a deafening silence between the two. Claire, I'm sorry. You have to understand. I didn't want you to get involved in any of this. That's why I choose not to tell you. Doesn't matter. You don't give a damn. All you care about is that damn parking garage. That's not... Jack started. Claire cut him off. It is. We'll get you a damn car at the garage so you can make your escape. I'm not leaving without my brother. Jack stood to himself for a moment as she left the room. Suddenly an angry stomp out the far door. Jack looked back at the reception window. Mary stood still watching him, with deep, lifeless gaze that never fell from the window. Going on his own wasn't an option, and definitely wasn't the smartest idea. Claire has every right to be mad. He had lied, sure, it was to preserve himself, and to survive, but he could not understand her anger. After all, he was probably the first thing she had felt that she could trust in this nightmare, and now all this was turned upside down. Just then he heard it. Gunfire. 2 constructive shots. After one another, Jack snapped into the attention and ran for the door. He spotted Claire at the end of the hall with her gun raised over the corner. What is it? He yelled after her. Decided to tag along? Claire said as she lowered her weapon. He raised an eyebrow at her. You're kind of my only friend here. I wouldn't say that, Claire muttered. Just a crawler, but not what caught my eye. Jack stood next to her and flicked on his flashlight. The beam scanned across the room. Someone had been here. Bullet holes, broken windows, and the dead are, well, they're dead again, Jack observed. Right, maybe an officer? Or Leon, Claire added. Jack stepped carefully down the hallway, leading the way over the dead bodies. He bumped one and felt himself freeze, as if half expecting it to get a chunk taken out of his boot. Claire followed closely, and she couldn't help but curl her lips in disgust. She watched Jack approach the doors labeled briefing room. He reached the doorknob and held his weapon in front of him. His forearm and elbow curled, as if ready to take on the sudden recoil of his weapon. Claire couldn't believe what she had seen earlier on, but during the fight with Mr. X, it was too hard to ignore. The way he held his weapon out in front of his chest, instead of stretched out in front of him. He never blind fired. His sights were always in view. He turned, scanning each room for movement, not just of them, but in the corners as well, and he never seemed surprised, or at least he didn't show it. Claire wasn't sure if she could trust him. I mean, conspiracy and murder? He's highly trained by an upstanding company. He can't be that bad. If he were a jerk, it really did matter anymore? She would have had to watch him closely nonetheless, but he seemed sincere. She hated for herself for opening up on him onto the helipad before escaping that monster in the trench coat attacked. Telling him all of that stuff. It wasn't her style, but she usually played out her cards close to her chest. Even relationships with men. There was something different about him, though. Regardless of his past, he was easy to talk to. Plus, if he really was going to kill her, wouldn't he have done so already? Claire watched him turn in one motion, lower his gun from his chest. His movements were precise, and his footing was tactical as he was. Well, honestly, he was kind of hot. But she would never admit that. Why are all bad boys always best looking? Clear, we should check this room. It's a briefing room. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some ammunition or information lying around, Jack said. Claire agreed. I'll check the lockers. Jack turned away from her, a little unsure of why they stood. He felt bad about lying to her, but glad he could tag along with her, at least just a little longer. The only thing worse than being stuck in a situation with someone that hated you was being stuck in this situation with no one at all. While he was trained and fluent in combat, this was different. The enemy wasn't moving the same. Everything was deathly quiet. Normally closing the distance between yourself and your target created a disadvantage, where it could get you killed. Having Claire at his back meant that he could always have someone on his six. She didn't know it, but he certainly appreciated. He rummaged through the front desk at the head of the briefing office and came across something. It was small, rectangular, and glossy. It was an ID with the phrase STARS, Special Tactics and Rescue Squad. Officer Valentine Jill. Jack's eyes widened. Valentine. Claire looked over at him. What? She's this cop who brought me in. Her picture was pretty thin face, green eyes, brown hair, and had a red tint to her face, as serious as when she put the cuffs on him. Claire squinted at the picture. She worked with my brother. If her ID is here, maybe she's here. Maybe the stars are okay, Jack suggested. Jack pocketed her ID and Claire headed far to the door. Come on. We gotta find the stars office.